Oh, hi there. Welcome to my 10.1.5 Feral Druid guide. It's time to be a fire kitty. Let's go. So the stat you want to look for on a Feral Druid is primarily crit. This is because this gives us additional combo points throughout a fight. After that, you want a mix between haste and mastery. For me, mastery is slightly better, but haste is not too far behind. And then lastly, you have versatility. You tend to ignore this for the most part. However, having a bit on gear isn't a huge deal. Going into the class tree, you don't get a huge amount of damage increasing nodes. However, your class tree is mainly utility and defensively focused, simply due to the druid being able to encompass ranged DPS, melee DPS, tank, and a healer, so it has to have some diversity in. The DPS node you want to pick up is Thrash, Improved Swipe, Killer Instinct, Primal Fury, as well as Nurturing Instinct in single target. And the last major offensive node is Likara's Teachings, which grants us 6% more critical strike. Defensively and utility-wise, Feral Druids are quite decent. They're not as tanky as Boomkins since they're in melee, so they get hit by a lot more abilities. Our main defensive layers from our class tree comes from Barkskin and Thick-Hide, as well as Well-Honed Instincts, which is an heal. Renewal, which can heal you on demand. And if we really need it, we can go into Heart of the Wild, using it to either give out more healing, to do what is known as Owl Weaving, which isn't used that much these days, or you can use it as a big defensive on swapping over to Bear Form, granting you a lot more tankiness. You also have access to Nature's Vigil, which is just a heal for 15 seconds of all your single target damage for 20% of that damage. Utility-wise, as a druid, you have a few options on your class tree. You gain access to stuff like Ursul's Vortex or Mass Entanglement. You can pick up Typhoon or Hibernate, remove Corruption. You can even spec into a bit of off-healing, which we will do in certain builds. You also have access to Innovate. Innovate is an amazing help for healers. You also got Soothe, so you can dispel enrage effects. And you have the options to pick your Interrupt as well. Going over the class tree, currently there are 4 general builds for Feral Druids that I will go through in subsequent order. The first one we'll look at is our single target raid build, where the main focus is that you want to get Circle of Life and Death, you want to get Ashmane's Guidance, and Feral Frenzy as your capstones. On the way, we pick up Adaptive Swarm, Lunar Inspiration, all of our improved Berserk nodes, and we will pick up our Shield Wall as well. This current setup utilizes Lunar Inspiration as a way to generate combo points. So the single target talent tree, you tend to go down the left side where you have most of your single target damage points. However, let's say you want to focus on single target, but you still need a bit of more of AoE damage. You go into what is known as the Compromise build. In the Compromise build, we spec out of Lunar Inspiration and Adaptive Swarm. And we also remove Tyler's Energy to pick up Primal Wrath and going down the Rip, Brutal Slash, Rip and Tear, and Apex Predator's Craving. The reason we go into Apex Predator's Craving and Primal Wrath is because Primal Wrath applies a short duration rip to every target within 14 yards. This then makes it so that every time each of our rip deals damage, it has a chance to make our next Ferocious Bite free and deal max damage. So we can kind of use this as a funnel mechanic where we spread our rips and then we bite our main target. In the M+ general build, you will have a lot more focus on your Primal Wrath as your finisher, with Tear Open Wounds, so you deal that a bit of instant damage while also reapplying rips constantly to get it all going. You still pick up Apex Predator's Craving to get the free Ferocious Bites, and then we pick up Rampant Ferocity, where Ferocious Bite deals damage based on our combo points to all nearby targets affected by rip. And then lastly, we have this build called the Beast build. It is not my personal favorite, however, it can be quite nice. A lot of our damage in this Beast setup comes from having the Adaptive Swarm spreading out and applying a debuff that increases the periodic effects on our targets by 25%. This means that there's a larger focus on getting sure that we have Primal Wraths out and having Rips out, having Rakes out, and then trying to fit in Ferocious Bites on our main target as possible. Now, when we talk about the core mechanics of Feral Druid, there is one particular mechanic that you need to be very aware of, which is called snapshotting. Feral Druid is the only spec in this game that still has this mechanic called snapshotting. Basically, snapshotting means that, for instance, Tiger's Fury grants 21% additional damage to all of our attacks for their full duration. Basically, this means that when you reapply your Rip and your Rakes, you want to make sure that you have Tiger's Fury up as much as possible to increase their damage. This also means that a talent like Sudden Ambush, where you can have a chance to make your Rake deal double damage because it's from stealth, combining those means that your Rakes now do 70% more damage. And then lastly, we have Bloodtalons, which is an additional 25% damage increase to our Rips and our Ferocious Bites. However, most people don't like playing with Bloodtalons. I don't mind it because I have primarily always played Feral if I was playing a Druid. However, you can pick up Lion Strength. You will see a slight loss in DPS. However, for a newer player, Lion Strength is totally acceptable and can help you get into the whole groove of how to actually manage your dot timings and making sure that you have dots up all the time. The last thing we have to discuss before going into the single target rotation is Incarnation versus Convoke the Spirits. They are basically equal, however they fit two different types of damage profiles. So Convoke the Spirits is better if you have a huge damage window every minute or so, or the fight is shorter so that we don't get as much benefit of having a longer cooldown or Incarnation. Incarnation, however, thanks to Asherman's guidance, have a chance to give us our Incarnation whenever we are in combat. This can be quite helpful overall, and is why I personally prefer playing with Incarnation, as I like to have that big, okay, now we're going to kill this boss. So choosing between Convoke the Spirits and Incarnation is roughly based on your boss timings. So when we talk about our single target rotation, we want to always start from stealth. This improves our Rake and our shreds. So as you can see, so the way you want to do your rotation is basically you want to keep on Rake, on a Thrash, keep that one on. Then you can utilize 3 combo point generators so you get the Bloodtalons. Then from here on out, you want to make sure that you're using Tiger's Fury as much as possible so that we can maintain our Rips, our Thrashes, and all our damage over time effects. And then try not to reuse or reapply a new Rip or new Rake without having both of your damage modifiers on the target. Playing a Feral Druid is all about waiting for the right time to use your offensive abilities. You want to be somewhat careful not to overspend your energy because we don't have a natural energy recuperation in our toolkit. Now, if you're at 0 combo points and you won't cap on energy, that's when you use Feral Frenzy. So the idea is just that you want to keep up all of your dots, making sure we refresh our Rips and our Shreds when we have as many multiplying damage forces as possible. That's kind of our single target rotation. Be careful not to overspend anything and just keep it going along. So let's talk about the opener for a Feral Druid. You want to make sure that you're in Prowl so we can get the improved Rake. So what you want to do is you want to Rake, Moonfire, then Thrash to keep everything up, apply Adaptive Swarm, Tiger's Fury, Rip, Feral Frenzy, Berserk, and then just dump your remaining combo points with Shred and Ferocious Bites. Luckily with your Incarnation, all your abilities counts as if you were in stealth, so you can just spam away and try to get as many finishes in throughout your Incarnation. Again, you want to keep up Fresh as much as possible, and then we just go into our single target rotation. So going over our Mythic Plus rotation and how we are actually doing our AoE rotation, it's quite similar to our single target, except as long as there are multiple targets, we're using Primal Wrath rather than using our regular Rips. The main difference is that now we have Brutal Slash, which is in theory a damage increase in single target. However, the general rule of thumb is just make sure that you are not capping on charges for Brutal Slash, and that you still want to prioritize Thrash and Shred when you get a clear casting proc. So let's show you how that looks. You want to make sure that you have Tiger's Fury up. The reason why we spam Tiger's Fury as much as possible is because we have Predator, where Tiger's Fury resets cooldown if a target dies when we have just 1 bleed up. It also increases the duration of Tiger's Fury, which is always nice. So this means that you would actually use Tiger's Fury from stealth if you can. So you got Tiger's Fury, Claw, Thrash, Brutal Slash, Primal Wrath. And then anytime we get a free Ferocious Bites proc, we just use it. You don't really have to overthink anything in AoE. It's basically just try to get as many Ferocious Bites in as you can, while also keeping up your shreds and your rips. You will still try to prioritize using Bloodtalons on your rips, but it's not the end of the world if you get into this situation where I am now, where I'm kind of low on energy, don't really have a whole lot going on. Don't be afraid to use a normal rip if a target will live for a long time, because you're able to still utilize that full rip on the target. Other than that, you just want to make sure that you use your incarnation as much as possible, because we have Heart of the Lion, where every time we spend a combo point, we reduce the cooldown of incarnation. The last things I want to mention before I end the video is regarding Bloodtalons and Lion Strength. Like I mentioned earlier, Lion Strength is great for starting to learn Feral Druid. However, Bloodtalons is stronger, and you will gain more benefit once you start playing around Bloodtalons correctly. Now, I'm a bit rusty on my Feral Druid, so I didn't do that perfectly here, but I hope that you get the idea. But yeah, that was all I had to say about Feral Druid. It's a very fun spec. Very, very enjoyable when you play correctly. I love having the snapshot mechanic. And hopefully you'll subscribe. So for more guides in the future, see you around. Bye!